What's going on, everybody? Today is October 11th. It's Wednesday, and you are watching, listening to the Daily AI Show live. And today we're going to be talking about same thing we did last Wednesday. We're trying this out, and it's going to be the things you knew we would talk about in AI news over the past week. So basically, last 7 days. I don't know that we're keeping it all to the minute or anything like that. I'm sure there'll be some overlap. But there's always new interesting stuff coming out in the world of AI. And these are some of the topics that we individually thought would be interesting, and then we're bringing to you. So I have a few guys. I have, I want to talk about some new advancements in Adobe's Firefly. I'd like to talk about 11 Labs and what they have going on with some overdubbing, which is in other languages, which I just ran and I think is super cool. And then some other things like, maybe, I don't know if we want to jump into this because Jimmy, I always think about you and like film and stuff like that. But maybe a fun one to jump into is Disney's getting some heat right now because they just came out with Loki season 2, and it looks pretty obvious to me. I'll share it on my screen real quick. But it looks like they used, some sort of AI to generate the background picture. Hey, Ann, what's going on? Good morning.
Good morning, sunshines.
Glad
Good
to see
morning,
you back, Ann.
sunshine.
Always happy to see you, Ann. Let me share my screen super quick. Spotify Loki. Good
morning, sunshine. Sunset.
Okay, so this is the image in question, and it looks like your typical image or whatever, but some sleuths on X, aka Twitter, started going, hey, look, real quick, you can zoom in here, and all of a sudden, some telltale signs of what we would think AI would do, which is not quite get the letters, the Roman numerals on the clock correct. There's some wonky stuff going on. I think they even use the word wonky, which I think is perfect for this particular case. And then it goes on to talk about like, hey, here's the image we think came from like a Shutterstock. I think it was Shutterstock, which also goes against Shutterstock's rules on that. So I think this is a good topic to talk about, maybe to kick things off. I don't know, Jimmy, what's your take on this in terms of, what does this mean? I mean, we're coming right off of this writer's strike, or is it the writer's strike or the other strike that's done right now? One of them's still going, right?
Writer's strike just ended.
The writer's strike just ended, which maybe this isn't in that vein, but I don't know. Entertainment, big companies using AI. What's your take on something like this?
Well, I think the main issue isn't so much that they used AI, it's that people, especially in the creative world, are still split on how to use it properly. We just came off of one strike and we still have another strike going on. And so in the creatives world, the use of AI, how to use it, and what this could be as a first step towards a slippery slope is what most creatives are worried about. And so when a big company like Disney uses something like, whether it was the intro for Secret Invasion that came out a few months ago, or this image, all the creative world's going to keep hyper focus. They're gonna they're gonna try and spot everything and whatnot, because I think their primary goal is just to make sure that everything's done above board. This isn't snuck behind the process or anything like that. And so while it might be a little heavy-handed, I think I'm sure this is not even on the radar of Disney. They're not, like, their execs and the top brass, so to speak, they're not even looking at this stuff. Okay. Yeah. It's always just, we need to create a poster for a Loki. Yeah. Okay, let's put these elements together. And it might have been the designer who took it and use that Shutterstock image. And if you notice at the end of that Verge article, they actually talk about how Shutterstock does have an AI program, right? They do have a collection of AI generated image, and I think that was pretty recent that they wanted to start that up. But Shutterstock may not even known that this image was AI generated, which then is automatically trusted and assumed when it's used as a library for a designer to put it up on the poster. So I think this is probably a little bigger or a little smaller than how big they've blown it up to be.
Sure.
But
Mhm.
in a general sense,
so
it's
good.
just that concern of how AI is creeping into the creative process.
So I have a follow-up question to that. Okay, do you guys remember the movie True Lies with
Mhm.
Arnold
Yep.
Schwarzenegger?
Oh, yeah.
And there's a big scene in True Lies where they're actually on, well, they're supposed to be on US 1. It's going down to the Keys and they blow up the bridge. And there was a big thing about it at the time because they're like, dude, they actually blew up a part of the old US 1 bridge. Just literally yesterday, I happened to see an old photo that was like on Facebook, whatever, and it's of the miniatures, the whole crew, the crew sitting on a miniature bridge that they blew up, right? It's sitting in the water, but because of the perspective and stuff like that, it obviously looks real life, but it's just literally, whatever. Today, you wouldn't blow up a bridge, right? You would just CGI the hell out of it. It would look super real. You wouldn't really know about it. But back then, I remember like T2 and all these movies that came out and stuff like that. Everybody's like, oh, that's not a miniature. That's CGI. That's, and back when we think about Jurassic World and what was going as a great documentary on Disney about, what is it? LM, Lights and Magic, and ILM, and Industrial Lights and Magic. And, when they started moving away from models to CGI and Jurassic Park and making the dinosaur run was one of the first things they sort of started doing that with. And it was some guy at one computer in a corner office. And now it's like their whole bread and butter, right? So I don't know. My whole point to saying all that, Jimmy, is this just that? Is this just like, we're just pointing it out because it's different? But the reality is, what would we expect? If Disney is a company and they want to save time and money, just like every other company does, and this is a means to a faster end to produce these types of graphics. So now it takes this graphic artist, whoever did this, 30 minutes instead of 3 hours to create. I mean, of course they're going to want to do that, but they do need to be above board in terms of saying like how they're doing it. Is that sort of the idea here?
I think so. Because there's just so much, the camps have been riled up, so to speak, over the last few months. And, there's some strong points on both sides there. I look at it as any new technology or tool, especially how useful it is, you're going to use that, right? That's gonna be integrated. It's just the speed in which it's being integrated and and any fears that you might see down the line, especially with talk like Hinton saying like, oh, in 5-10 years they'll be smart, AIs will be smarter than humans and stuff like that, sort of talking back to our yesterday's show. But I think it's just like any new tool, right? You're going to integrate that. How you do it, I think just right now everyone's just charged about the subject, and there isn't any clear regulations or pays. People have not put it in a box and labeled it to understand it, compartmentalize it yet. It's all so new. So yes, you're gonna have people like pointing things out, and it's like, oh, this is wrong, and just like how you were saying about the CGI. But eventually the CGI will get better and better until now it's completely.
The problem with
So
I'm sorry, Aaron
let
was
me
just
jump-
something.
Well, I was just
jump
going to
in
say
here, 'cause-
one last analogy was there was an interview a few years ago with George Lucas about Star Wars, and he was saying the original trilogy they used a little bit of computer graphics in that, and it was like 3%, and now it's like 97% or something along those lines, and that's what happens in 20-30 years.
So I wasn't intending to talk about this, but you guys raised that subject and it just triggered something in the old noggin. So I'm in I don't know if any of you have been watching the Amazon Prime TV series, The Wheel of Time, by any chance, which has got a lot of CGI in it. And so it's buried up there in the bookshelf is the 14 books that the guy wrote for the series, which has got like some ridiculous.
So you hate the show then, probably, right?
No, well, yes and no. So here's the thing: what I don't like about the show is that they've diverted quite significantly from the books in some aspects. And now I understand the challenges of creating a TV series with 8 episodes per series and all those books. It's just not going to happen. You have to change things, but it's caused a lot of grief with a lot of people. And I'm just looking ahead 2, 3, 5, maybe 10 years to the point where it'll be so easy to take a book, stuff it into, like, digitally inject it into some fancy new AI tool, and it could literally duplicate it in real life. I think that's going to be that's years away, but I think it's going to be a really interesting change to the market, and whether they'll adapt to it or not, I don't know. So, but I've got no idea when that's going to happen. So,
yeah, I agree.
So, AI in the news.
Yep.
I want to throw out AMD is trying to give NVIDIA a run for their money. Made a deal recently. I forgot the company, but wanting to create chipsets that are going to. Now, why is that important to you and me and the viewers? Well, that just allows competition, which drives down price, which allows more entrance to the market. This is, capitalism 101, but I think it's really going to help with having more access to those chips, because NVIDIA is at a, they're churning them out as fast as they can to make enough of these GMUs for processing of language models. Although I do think that's not going to be a future. Like, that's not going to be how it goes in the future. I think we're going to be getting smaller and smaller models. They're going to be more efficient. There's a theory that that's the right way to go. Like, everybody's going to have a different model, and I think that's, right now the big companies are saying, no, we have to be the one, API access, come to our language model. But I think as it gets easier to deploy your own, Mistral, if you're familiar with Mistral, you can actually download that, run it on your computer without any internet. So if you're so inclined, there's easy ways to do so. So now that was one little nugget. One other thing I saw, which was interesting, there scientists believe in, was it 5 years, that we'll be able to talk with animals. And specifically, well, I shouldn't say we should be able to talk with them, but we'll be able to mimic bird communication and mimic whale communication, because with the use of AI, which I can't quite fathom what that really means, but I just thought that was an interesting nugget, that they're on track, and I think it'll be faster than that given how fast things are moving recently. But they're able to analyze the crows or analyze the whales and understand, and then be able to repeat back. And can you imagine?
Just to be able to understand what's going on. Well, the first thing that pops into mind for that kind of thing is we know animals are more sensitive to changes in the environment, like earthquakes, right?
Yes,
your horses all get skittish. I'm sure Andy knows all about that kind of stuff. But wouldn't it be great to help early warning systems?
Not to mention cancer. There's cancer sniffing dogs, drug sniffing dogs. They can see ailments. Wow.
Yeah, I'll add one that was in the news this week at Oxford University in the UK. Scientists there in neuroscience found a way to differentiate schizophrenic patients from normal patients in responding to just a simple task like name 10 animals. And it has something to do with the way schizophrenic brains work and how they store memories. And it has an impact on the way that they output, the words for that task. So you can imagine now, in this vein of discussion, that AIs will be able to detect, just from verbalizations, human verbalizations, mental issues that are early warning systems, in effect.
Wow. I think this all kind of goes back to what we were talking about with intelligence yesterday, and how intelligence isn't just one. There's not one factor, one metric or something like that. I think we're gonna maybe find in the next couple of years that, from understanding dolphins better, and we know how intelligent dolphins are, as far as and gorillas and these and different animals that have extreme intelligence, just not in the same way that humans do. So just kind of a throwback to yesterday's topic, but it's that all of that's really, really interesting to me, and I kind of agree. AI and algorithms are going to unlock so many more opportunities. My mom passed from a cancer in 2008, and she told me at the time she'd beaten cancer once, breast cancer, and then she was free for about 6 years. It came back when it came back everywhere. In that interim, when she was essentially cancer free at the 5-year mark, I remember her saying to me, I'm going to just try to live long enough to the cure of cancer. That was the way she looked at it, was like, if I can live long enough, I can beat cancer by finding the cure to cancer. Now, this is 2000, 5, right? But now here we are in 2023. My mom passed 15 years ago at this point. But now I look at it and say, are we 5 years away from the cure to cancer? And is that because of AI? And this is not that this is in the news, but it's like kind of always in the news, which is like now AI is coming up with, I just read this about how it's coming up with these really, really unique cocktails of drugs that are already on the market and already out there, but it's figuring out, hey, this specific cancer patient needs this cocktail of already approved drugs. It's not like we have to go through 10 years of FDA approval in order to figure out how to help that individual specific patient get through whatever they're trying to do in their treatment. I just think that is where we're going to be very soon, is that no, like you, me, Jimmy, Andy, we could all have the same technical ailment or disease, but it may be very, very hyper personalized to each one of us on how we get those treatments. Thanks to advances in AI.
And just think, this couldn't have happened 10 years ago or 20, like the mapping of the genome, the data, CRISPR, like because we have gotten to where we are now AI, it's like perfect storm. I get goosebumps. Like it's really weird that it wouldn't have been able to do much if it was 15 years ago that LLMs came out, right? But now that we have other things that in science and medicine that have been developed, holy crap, it can take all that data and just absorb it and just like it's really fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
On the topic of medical stuff, so I ran across this article. It was published yesterday on Business Insider. The headline is, AI is overhyped, Warren Buffett's right-hand man, Charlie Munger, says. I thought that was interesting. And he said, amongst other things, he's previously said AI is not going to cure cancer. Yeah, maybe not. But the thing I thought was most interesting was that Munger is 99 years old, so probably not what you would call highly techie, if you know what I mean. So, I think there are a lot of people out there who don't think this stuff is going to happen, but I think realistically it is. So, also on the medical subject, Google's just announced a new generative AI search capability for doctors. They'll be allowed using Google Cloud. They'll be allowed to, doctors will be able to put their documentation, their notes, their scans all into one system. They'll be able to search through it and get a lot more cool stuff out of it. So I thought that was really interesting in the medical space as well.
Yeah. So the specifics about that is their Vertex AI offering on cloud. They now allow the MedPalm 2 model to be available.
Yep.
That's Google's, right?
Yeah.
MedPalm 2 is that Google? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Naturally, everyone's going, well, we'll go slowly. We don't trust it just yet. But like the Mayo Clinic is testing it.
There's some great research responses they've seen from that. It's like 92% accuracy off of that model, which is a fantastic percentage. But yes, in the medical field, I would assume you'd want to be more like 100%. Another Google thing that they announced, Google Assistant now has Bard. So hopefully as Bard gets better, Google Assistant may be the first to do the personal assistant that I've always wanted. I did want to touch on a couple of other AI news things from the dev side of things. So I don't know if anyone knows about Replit. They're essentially their service and their tools just help coders, programmers to build apps and things like that. But they created something called Replit AI, which is essentially their co-pilot, right? To help you complete your apps and complete the code, help you out with that. But the big thing they did was they announced that they came out with a new 3 billion parameter model for everyone to have access. So all of their users, as opposed to just like premium users, which I think they're mentioning something like they have 23 million programmers out there who can take advantage of it and stuff like that. And the one that I really am excited about is Docker announced their Gen AI stack. So you can use Docker, which is a container app, basically, or a container development environment, so that you can wrap your apps and run them on pretty much anything. But this is something Robert had mentioned in our Slack earlier. They're doing a distribution through Ollama. So if you're familiar with that, that's a way to run models locally and very easily on Mac OS and Linux, and hopefully Windows soon. But nice clean packages running local models, which is, I think, like Robert's saying, everyone's going to do their smaller personal models, and hopefully everyone will have their own.
They just lost Andy.
just as we're about to talk to Andy, we lost him. Hopefully he'll be back. Maybe it's a
guys. Let me share a little 10-second nugget with you, which I thought was fascinating. Sure. So we talked earlier about those AI chips. So running chat, I just found this today. Running ChatGPT is very expensive for the company. Every query costs about 4 cents, according to an analyst. If GPT queries grow to 1/10 of the scale of Google search, it would require roughly $48.1 billion worth of GPUs initially, and about $16 billion worth of chips a year to keep it operational. So we definitely need some advances in that space, or it's just going to get out of control.
And not to mention
glad Microsoft and OpenAI have got a lot of money.
Water usage. I keep reading a lot of things about like the amount of water usage it takes. So there's obviously going to have to be some massive advancements in efficiencies in these computing processes. And
water is because it's cooling down in case people weren't listening, don't know that.
Yeah.
Say again, Robert.
Well, in case people don't know, water is used to cool down these processors, and that's why there's a lot of water usage.
I've not this week, but like just in general, I've seen, I think it's Microsoft is testing, like they basically take these huge, I'm going to say the wrong word, but let's just call them like data centers, and they just submerge them in the ocean, and they're like right offshore, and they're running cables from it. And that's one of their ways to like try to help with, that cooling process or whatever, which, makes sense. I mean, it's a new way of thinking, I suppose, but it sounds like we're just going to have to come up with all sorts of more efficiency models for how we're going to do this, because obviously this is not going to slow down. It's only going to speed up. We're only at the very tip of usage of ChatGPT. Every time I'm talking to people, obviously in the sales side of the world, I ran a workshop yesterday for an hour and a half with a couple people, and some of them had just started using ChatGPT. Some of them were using it now and starting to create their own prompts, right? Well, this is just a small microcosm of the sales departments at large. 6 to 9 months, there won't be a sales department out there that's not using ChatGPT or a version of that, like Claude or whatever it's going to be, like hundreds of times a day in the cross of just doing prospecting and researching. I mean, think about how many SDR, I know I always say that, sales development representatives, business development representatives, your sales reps, right? The people who are going out there and doing cold calls and stuff, how much volume there is today, just in cold calls, emails, and all that. Now overlap that with a prompt search to be more personalized for every single one of them, plus future automations, which we all know are going to be more and more commonplace. Oh my goodness, I don't even know what that volume is, but it's 10 to the something power, I'm sure. Okay,
so Andy, what do you get back with us? What can you bring to the AI in the news this week?
So I want to share some trends that I'm observing in the sort of evolution of applications and also the configuration of some of the tools that we work with. So I want to zero in on the whole idea of building a chatbot, giving it the company's documents, then providing chatbot access either internally or externally with consumers so that they can access the corporate knowledge base, in effect, the ones that are approved, for consumer consumption. So that ends up being a kind of a mini industry in the early days of AI. And we all know people who are doing this as a service for companies. And to this point, the way that has to be done is you have to set it up so that you are, accessing one of the large language models behind the scenes through an API that's articulating the chatbot's responses. So it takes the data and then it provides a response. And as a service provider, and Carl is one of the guys on our team here at the Daily AI Show. He's done this about 20 times, like with different small and medium-sized businesses. And so he's really practiced at this. Now, the way he does that is he uses his own API and then provides a turnkey service to the company and then has to charge them for the utilization. Now that can create some cash flow problems if the company that you're providing service to is ramping up dramatically the number of queries that are going against their chatbot, but it's on Carl's API. Well, these kinds of systems are going to, have these feature enhancements. And one just came out this week from one of the companies that provides these chatbots called Retune. And they added a feature that's quite different. And it just tweaks my ideas about how all of these players are going to make feature adjustments and evolve. And that feature is you can now have multiple chatbots in your own account, and you can apply the company's API key, not yours.
Super smart.
Right?
Super smart.
So that, and I haven't seen that yet. I don't think it's available in any of the platforms for chatbot, development right at the moment. But that's a very interesting thing, and it's related in my mind to something that I think is very cool about a company called Respel that you mentioned earlier in our Slack thread, because you're working with Respel, Brian, and maybe some of the others of you. I haven't started doing it yet, but very interesting because they use, on the back end, they use a service called Open Router that accesses any API for any of the large language models and then doesn't upcharge you for it. It just charges you for that use in the Respel account. So simplifying and just making it easier for people to develop business and provide service applications to customers through feature enhancements on these systems.
Yeah, real quick, Respel,
go for it.
My best customer experience with a company to date. I reached out to them because I was having trouble implementing an API call as part of the process that I wanted to build this automation. We worked back and forth on it, and then they realized the better implementation is if they built something on their back end for me. So they're doing it.
That's a good sign.
I was just like, that's amazing. So yeah, if you want AI automation or language model automation, Respel's probably the place to go.
And I'll just add to that. I was on a call with one of the founders or starting work is there, whatever. And he just said to me, he goes, we want to make Respel so easy that your grandma can build automations. Like I'm not saying they're there today. They're still they're early on. But
sounds like a perfect partnership for Daily AI Show. I think we need
they're cool folks. Yeah.
I think they should recognize our massive audience and maybe we should do a demo.
Yes.
Brilliant
thinking, Robert.
We're running out of time, but I got two quick ones to share, and then I actually probably can't go over today, so I will try to do this fairly quickly. To share your audio, share screen, share tab or screen instead. All right. Well, then I have to do entire screen. Okay. So we can get.
So Brian, this is your TLDR.
That's fine. Yeah. All right. Here we go.
TLDR.
Yeah, 11 Labs has a new overdubbing feature, which I think is super cool. So naturally, I had to try that. So we got one in Spanish and one in French. Let's do the Spanish one first.
Aquí no hay una forma realmente fácil de tomar un archivo de audio que tienes y convertirlo en un blog. Ahora, en este caso de uso particular, lo que hice fue ejecutar el show de EA.
So this is the video I just put out on LinkedIn this morning, speaking of Respel. And this one is in French.
C'est un moyen vraiment facile de prendre un fichier audio que vous avez et de le transformer en un blog. Maintenant, dans ce cas d'utilisation particulier, ce que j'ai fait, c'est de lancer le show IA quotidien.
Well, but I have no idea if it's good or bad.
Well, I don't know either because I don't speak French and I don't speak Spanish. But let's put that aside and assume that 11 Labs knows what they're doing. It's not like HeyGen like we demoed a while back where my mouth is not synced up. It's literally an overdub. But I love that the emphasis on certain words like Spotify or when I said blog or whatever, I can hear it, and it put that emphasis in sort of my voice and my tone in the other language. I think that's super cool. So this has amazing use cases for business. Okay. Second one, Adobe Firefly came out with some new updates. They had already had stuff like this where you could do text and you could put other things into it. So putting like sprockets and blogs into small gadgets into the Daily AI Show. But that's really like nothing compared to what they've done for like text and image. And they're going to have this new text to vector, which I think is going to be super cool. And then, well, that's the blog about it real quick. Here we go. So they have what they call beta Firefly Image 2. This right here is their old Image 1. You can kind of see it's in white, but that's Image 1. And now this is Image 2. So really big improvements as far as
so you're taking out one of the girls and replacing her with a model. What?
Yeah.
Right. So and
There's
then we can
a lot more
look at
facial
animals.
stuff on there.
Yeah.
1 versus 2. Right. Let's see. Food. 1 or big difference there. 1 versus 2.
Yeah.
Sci-fi, which I don't know. I mean, sci-fi is going to probably look okay either way. And then let's see what his backdrops here. So this is 1, and this
much
is 2.
better.
So,
yeah. Well, my question is, can it do stormtroopers sitting around a fire on Endor? Because it didn't do a very good job last time I tried W5.
Well, that's it. I think I don't have enough time to do it. You guys can always do it, but
I
would say, look, for business use cases, because we're always talking about, what can be helpful in business as well. Overdubbing your videos into other languages, massive use case. So 11 Labs could be a great option for you there. You'd have to look at sort of the pricing per video to see what makes sense. But Adobe Firefly, which was already out there, that's not something brand new, but their beta 2 version of their image, obviously, as you can see, is a drastic improvement over what their initial Firefly 1 was or whatever. So if you tried Firefly in the past, you thought, I don't know, Midjourney is better, I like this better, I highly encourage you to go back, especially if you're in marketing or you're in design or anything, and go look what they're doing, especially when we're able to do that vector. I don't know, I'm really excited about the vector, the text to vector. That kind of lights up all sorts of ideas for me.
What does Firefly cost? What does it cost to use it?
Nothing. It's free.
It's free at the moment.
The Firefly, I have to sign in with my Adobe account, but I don't have any plan on the backside of that. So I think you get so many credits, just kind of like you do with Bing and doing DALL-E 3 right now. And then they probably refresh every month. So yeah, right now it's a super easy tool to use, and I really like it. So that's it for me. And I got to go. So you guys want to wrap this one up, and I'm not going to hit end stream this time. I'm not going to hit end stream. I'm just going to leave the studio. But you guys have fun, wrap it up, and I'll see you guys tomorrow, okay?
Thanks, Brian.
See ya. So
all right, Robert, what do you got as your TLDR?
I don't have a TLDR. This week was a little bit slower than last week. So last week was really packed full. I've already mentioned kind of my things that are interesting, so I'll just skip myself.
My TLDR is the biggest news of the coming week will be when I get voice in ChatGPT.
We want voice, I want vision.
And vision. Let's go.
I got vision, but I don't.
I still don't have it. So
yeah,
I actually jumped into because Canva, they've got the whole new Magic Design, Magic Media. So I made a little 12-second video. I won't show you guys, but it was pretty easy to do it. And I just pulled in the pictures of us that we had for the website, and it put together a cool little video. So, it's entry-level stuff, but it's coming everywhere. So keep your eyes open. Things are just going to get more and more wild. That's my TLDR.
Gotcha. And I just wanted to go a little more lighthearted. Apparently, this app called Epic, EPIK, is a huge trend on the for the Gen Z side, which we know from research is the biggest adopter for using AI today. And apparently, it added a new feature to make 90s era yearbook photos out of your selfies. And so that's the newest trend. And apparently it's so popular, they're making something like $250,000 a day off of it.
Wow.
So business, look at Gen Z, see what you can do. I guess that's how it applies to our show. All right. I think we're well over
Everybody's
time.
left.
We've already lost 2 of our members. So I'm just going to call it at this point. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And yeah, take it easy. Aloha.